welcome to Chrysalis on the Couch. I'm Kay, and I've been a Chrysalis tutor for many years, and I'm your host for this session today. And today I am joined by Abby, Sonia, and John, and they're all Year 2 students with Chrysalis. If you enjoy this, please give us a like and subscribe to our channel. So today we're talking about our shadow side. What does that really mean then? So we all have a shadow side, but often we are oblivious to it, or we try and deny it, or sometimes we can project those aspects onto someone else, pretending it's them that's got the issue and not us. So it's the part of ourselves that we don't much like, but we've all got negative traits, and if they're causing us a problem, then we can try and change them. But sometimes, you know, if they're not causing us too many problems, we do need to accept them as part of our personality. It's okay not to be perfect. And so we sometimes just need to accept our imperfections and integrate them. Now, for me, I know one of the negative traits I have is I'm very impatient. So if people are late, in the car, I get road rage very easily. If people are holding me up on the roads, or I get stuck in a traffic jam, and my friends are always telling me, chill out, okay, you can't do anything about it. But I find it really hard to be more patient, and it's something I'm working on, but I find it really difficult. For example, at the moment, I'm rearranging my house, and it's all got to be done in one day. I can't possibly, you know, do it over a week. So what happens is I nearly kill myself by lugging things around and doing too much. And at the end of the day, I'm like aching all over because I just haven't got patience to wait. So I'd like to know from you guys how you feel about the shadow and, you know, how that relates to you. So who wants to start?
I'll start. When I knew I was doing this, I had a look about what it was, what your shadow self was, and to me, I related to myself on quite a few different levels. One is really superficial level of stuff that I like that I know that I've got, and it's a trait that I don't like and that I keep hidden, and fundamental levels of something that I've struggled with all my life. So, you know, on one basis, I'm someone that's always been full of fear, even from a young child. I'm just scared of it. You know, I use it as a, it's not an excuse, but I get really nervous around things, or I think I'm going to fail. I've got a lot of less than going on. So that's fundamental. And I know that that's from a really young age, and I try my hardest to hide it from people. The other one, the superficial one, if you like, is that I'm a 55-year-old white male that has got, you know, that was brought up in a middle-class family that's got views and values that don't tie in quite well with where society is at the moment, and I struggle in and around that. So I look at it, you know, that's what really struck me about the, you know, I know that secrets are not good, but I didn't think it was as bad as that. I do know that it's something that I work on, the shadow self. I know that there's negative parts that have to be worked on. So I am a little bit more open-minded, and I do know that, you know, there's certain values in society now that I've got to look at. And as well as that, I work really hard about being brave, if you like. I think about it every day.
I think, you know, you're not alone there, though, are you? I think there's a lot of people who have different fears that they try to hide. Most people try and hide things, don't they don't like themselves from other people. Yeah. We often see something very different on the surface to what's going on underneath, don't we?
Yeah, I think it's really, You know, in the past I've described myself as a social chameleon, because in that way you're not ruffling anything, so you never quite show someone the real you, and you know, you can get lost in that. I know that goes a little bit deeper than what we're talking about, but yeah, very much so. I really, it resonated, and I understood the subject.
Yeah. Mm.
I think I can sort of feel from where you are, John, because I've spent a lot of time trying to sort of face that shadow, if you like, because it presents itself quite often, where feelings arise, and in social situations you might not want to show those feelings, but you feel cross with yourself for having those feelings because you know where they come from, and it's kind of that switching your head to face on to them, to say it's okay to have those feelings, but it's how you measure them, because it's all about perspective, isn't it? And how, well, how conditioning they are. You know, like you talked about, you know, your family values, and how we don't really necessarily accept the conditioning in our shadow because we keep pushing things away. So with the pain, you might push it away into that shadow, but it's all that energy that's stuck in that shadow, that if we perhaps embrace the energy of it and allowed it to be truthful, and allow ourselves to be ourselves rather than what we're conditioned to be, I think life would perhaps be maybe a bit easier.
Yeah, I think I can relate in that respect when you talk about being like your true self. Like when I was reading through the options of what we had to talk about today, and more so recently over the last couple of months, maybe year, I've started to recognize my out of control inability to want to just please every single person that I come into contact with. It was spoken about in our last lecture about how I just struggle to say no, and although actually at one point in my life it really helped me. I mean, I managed to thrive throughout my job and become a manager and be quite successful. That was because all I would do was just yes, 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 but it was never me actually being true to what I really, really wanted to do, and actually took myself away from it, even though it could have probably been a career that I could have had, because it was just not a way that I could live a life where I was just continuously wanting to please and say yes all the time.
Takes a lot of energy, doesn't it? I was speaking to a client earlier today, and she said she feels like she's wearing a mask with different people. She has to be a certain way with different people because she's hiding aspects of herself all the time that she doesn't really want them to see. She doesn't seem to fit in with what they're expecting, or that's her perception of it. So she's constantly hiding these different parts of herself and not being true to herself. And it takes so much energy to do that.
Yeah, it certainly does.
If we can work on ourselves and just be authentic all the time, it's so much easier.
Yeah.
You know, when we talk about people pleasing, we're talking about masks, and it resonates so much. I you know, mid-30s, I came to a point in my life where I had to change something, and I realized I didn't know me because I'd been so accommodating to everybody else, and I'd wanted to fit in, and I was worried about what people would think, and I would say yes to everybody, which was a trait, or I would dress like everybody, but I didn't actually know me. And it wasn't, you know, and I was even married at the time, and you know, there was a big fear that, you know, my wife was going to discover a new man that she'd married. But yeah, it's been a decent journey when you've got a safe space that you can actually show yourself in. You know, maybe that's why I'm attracted to, you know, to the course that we're on. It really is revealing, you know, when you create that space, and when someone has trust that they can show you, you know, the negative parts of themselves. And I
think that's so important, John. I mean, it just like jumps out at me when you talk like that, because I think about that whole thing of helping to help not only yourself but others to really look at what's hidden there. But it's not necessarily hidden, because if you think about reactivity and how we react in certain situations, rather than looking at the sort of reaction. It's about what's in that shadow that's making us do that. What is it that's triggering us? What is bringing that sort of, I suppose, knowledge or experience or past from that shadow forward into what you think you're hiding, but you're not. But it's that sort of kind of presence of knowledge to know that it's coming, and where does it come from? And Kay said something earlier on about how sometimes you look at others and think, well, you know, what's going on there, as if you're totally detached from it, but you're not, because it's your shadow doing something else. So if you're, for instance, listening, as an example, we were doing a sort of a piece on listening last time. Well, actually, we were talking about rights, actually, and I was sort of stuck with about the rights of, and the person's right to be listened to, but you also have a right not to listen if you wish to. But when anger perhaps arises, or arguments arise because somebody thinks that you're not listening to them and they just carry on, but you're thinking, well, why are they getting angry? But it's actually you that is presenting to them that you're not listening to them. So it's coming from within you somewhere. So it was quite interesting. So I pondered over it quite a lot really, about where it's not them, it's me. In that sense, does that I don't know if I explained that very well.
It's difficult, isn't it? Because I think we look at other people and think, why are they behaving like that? Why are they doing that? Or why are they saying that? And obviously they've got aspects of their shadow. But then sometimes the reason we do things is because our shadow's coming out as well. And I think, you know, obviously doing this course, you're going to become more and more aware of your own shadow and aspects of you that you don't really like and maybe hide. And I used to do that with my impatience. I didn't want people to know I was this like demanding person who wanted everyone to be on time and, you know, and scream and shout in the car. But now I own it, because it's fine. You know, there's nothing really wrong with that. But I think a lot of the time it's our expectations. We think other people are not going to like that about us, when everybody's got things that they don't like about themselves. It's not like we're different to anyone else, is it? We've all got things.
I think it goes back to when, like you said about saying no, like I know that I'm that person, but I don't quite understand why, because what's the worst that can happen if I say no to somebody? Like, it's not gonna, is it gonna change the way they feel about me? But then, do I really care? Like, if that's something that's going to change their perception of me, are they worth even talking to? But I think because I'm not a shy person, and I've never really been afraid to be who I am, why do I then always just want to continue to please these people that are around me or asking so much of me? Like, I just don't quite understand that about myself. And when you said about, like, hopefully during the course I will start to learn a little bit more about why that is, because I just cannot at the moment for the life of me figure it out.
I mean, it's always connected with the past, isn't it? It's conditioning normally.
Yeah.
And we know that can be very difficult to change. You know, when we're sort of brought up with certain things, we do tend to hang on to them. And it is, I think, you know, I think we need to challenge every belief we've grown up with, everything that's been said to us.
Yeah, I'm definitely challenging myself now, that's for sure. And any little no that I say, it's like a little leap of joy inside of me. I'm like, yeah, I said no. I feel guilty for about 20 minutes, but then I'm over it.
I really understand that. I've really got great empathy about, you know, having the courage of your convictions and be damned with what people think. And I don't mean that on the extreme level. I just mean that on a day-to-day level. And I find it, you know, maybe that's the fear or whatever it is. But yeah, that's a big thing in life, you know, to be able to tell your truth and not worry what someone thinks of you. I've had moments of it, you know, where I know that, you know, if I ever go to any kind of support meetings, I can turn around and tell people exactly where my experience of what I've gone through, you know, how I'm feeling at that moment. And be damned with what they think, because I know that I'm whole, and I find that really reassuring. But I do know that I don't do it all the time.
Yeah, no, definitely not.
But the rewards of actually doing it are big. I think, because you're going 180 degrees against, your not your values, but what you, like Kay said, what you've been conditioned to do.
Yeah.
And what 180 degrees for me is facing fear, is telling people, kind of what my values are and what I think, and how they're changing, or what I'm struggling with. I'm even afraid of telling people I don't quite understand. I don't kind of, contentious arguments in and around gender. I don't quite understand it, and I don't want to put. I've got old-fashioned values, and I'm afraid of telling people this, because what they're going to think is, and that stops me learning. Away from the fact that I could read more. So it really is. It's what's the word I'm looking for? It's you create problems on problems just because you're afraid of actually turning around and saying, this is me, but I'm willing to learn.
I think for me, I practicing sort of don't always believe what you first think. That's practicing on quite a lot, and I have been for quite some time. And I think the thing about it is that I'm not always very good at it, and I can't be that all the time. So you get the reactionary moments when you're tired and you're not really thoughtful, you're not really mindful, and you're not really owning that, sort of thinking about where has it come from, why am I doing what I'm doing, because you kind of like, you might just shoot off, your brain's not really processing it, you're not really putting it around the whole noggin. And then when you do get time, and you do really take the time to stop and put the brake on and really reflect back, and then start to look at your sort of deeper self, I think it is quite evident where, for me, it's trust issues. I know where the trust issues lie, and I know why that it's difficult for me to trust in things. I know why it's difficult for it to happen, and say people want me to trust them, but I don't think I will be able to trust them ever fully. And I will say them to, you might want me to trust you, but actually I don't know if I can.
Do you know, it's really funny what you've said there. It just made me think, as soon as you talk about the first response. So, I'm big on, not reacting and responding. But, the question with that is, do you get your true self if I respond to you? If I react, then it's a guttural reaction, and maybe that's the truth that's coming out. That's the shadow that comes out. That's the person that answers without thought of recrimination. But the response might be a measured response, and at that point, my old head comes and said, "Oh, they won't want to hear that. They won't want to hear that." So it really is. I kind of, that really pricked that question between response and reaction when you're in a conversation or when you're in company, and what you want people to see and not see.
And I suppose that's about learning, isn't it? How to deliver stuff, because you can still be truthful to your true self, but it's about saying the truth from your perspective without making someone feel, well, you can't control how you make someone else feel to a certain degree, but it's the deliverance of it, so you don't completely hurting them. I don't know if that sort of makes sense to anyone, but it does to me.
It's finding the balance, isn't it, between reacting and responding. You still want to be true to yourself, but it is saying it in the right way. Sometimes it's not what we say to someone, it's how we say it that hurts them, isn't it? And I think, especially in our society, we don't want to upset others, so maybe sometimes we're a bit too cautious. But we can still express our truth.
Yeah, which one are you being more congruent in when it comes down to it? Which one is where's it come from? And when you pick your words, are you literally saying yes as opposed to saying no? Are you when you're picking your words around someone because you don't want to hurt them, but maybe sometimes things have to be said, but it's an interesting concept. It's and it, you know, it rolls back with me all the way through to parts of me that I like to keep hidden, parts of me that I don't really want, you know, the shadow self that I don't really want people to see, you know, just the people pleaser, just think the best of me. Because if I'm like this and if I'm like you, then you're like me, and I'll get affirmation from that, and then we get into codependency, which maybe that's
but what I've found, John, 'cause obviously, you know, I've been in training and then a counsellor for a long time, and so obviously done loads of self-awareness, and I think during that time there's not much that I hide from people at all. And I remember someone I worked with a while back, and she said most people say they don't care what other people think. I said, but you really don't.
You actually mean it.
Which was quite a compliment in a way. And
yeah,
it's very freeing to just be yourself, but that doesn't mean I just say everything that I want to and hurt other people sometimes by my words. I've also found when you don't care what other people think, people actually like you more. They respect you.
Yeah.
They respect you in your truthfulness, don't they? So thinking about doing this exercise, I kind of got my little gingerbread man, my dark shadow,
Right.
and I kind of writing about that sort of darkness that I keep pushing too far back, you know, I keep trying to ignore it, you know, and I get cross with it when it kind of arises rather than embracing it. And I was thinking about what people see, you know, what do I think people see of me? What do I know about myself? What would my closest person, my beautiful husband, think about me? What would my mother think about me? And then how I know that I have these thoughts or this part of this shadow of me that they don't know about, or I just shut them down. I don't allow them to go there, because John talked about closing it down. It's there. I'd never share it with anyone. And I kind of called this Mr. Ugly. I don't know why it's a Mr, because it should be a Mrs. You know, why is it?
Why is your shadow a man?
Why is my shadow a man? You know, and I have no idea, but I probably do. But you know, put it out there.
But that shadow, you know, and Carl Jung talked about shadow and our dark side. But you know, we're here on the earth, and there's dark and light, isn't there? You know, there's the sun, and then there's no sun time. We need that balance, don't we? What would it be like if it was just sunny and wonderful here all the time? We wouldn't experience growth and learning, would we?
No.
And I think it's the same with our shadow. It's okay for us to have those qualities, traits that we don't like so much about ourselves. Why are we so scared of letting other people see those things?
Which is really funny when you said you used the phrase "it's okay to have." So, and that brings up, I really understand now that you know, you get dark thoughts that come in, and as long as you don't act on them, then that's okay. That's how it works. We go in and we get thoughts and we process them, and we either do or we don't. And the okay, where's the whose affirmation are we looking for? Maybe that's society, but life would be really boring if everybody was just smiley and happy all the time. You know, there would be no need for the job that I want to end up doing. And I really, you know, it's funny that's the whole thing. The hidden part of what everybody's saying or not saying is the thing that really turns me on about being a therapist. I think that, you know, that's the whole reason, is it trying to work out what people are not saying and the reason they're not saying it. So.
Yeah. And I suppose that's about the intimacy, getting closer to your shadow and not keeping that distance, because that then allows you to become a whole. And by becoming a whole, you you've retracked the energy. Because if you didn't have the emotions, life would be dull, wouldn't it? Like you said, it would be just, you know, there wouldn't be any shade. You wouldn't know what you're feeling because there's nothing to compare it to. You know, you wouldn't know, would you? And I think about when someone comes to speak to me, you know, in my workday work, and I ask them how they are, I genuinely want to know how they are. But some people will ask you how you are, and they just go on and just do something else. They're not really interested why you are, you know, they're not really interested in the answer. It's just a conditioning of introduction. And I often wonder about that, you know, do they realize what that looks like? Do they realize what that feels like? Do they understand that actually they don't need to do that? And do we need to do it? Do we need to ask questions that we don't really want to know the answers to? Or do we genuinely ask them because we want to know? And when people are talking about shame and guilt and pain and anxiety, you know, you're not going to go there not unless you really want to listen. And I was wondering about then how you bring in the shadow for people to understand why they've got that in their shadow and how to bring it closer to them, to use that energy forward so they're not guilty about saying no, not guilty about not doing something, and being whole in themselves. It's a kind of a strange one, isn't it?
We're very good at saying, yeah, I'm fine, aren't we?
The unconscious bias.
Yeah. And once I meet a lot of people dog walking, but they're just people I know dog walking. I don't really know them. And I remember this couple said, and how are you? And I was having a really bad day, and I stopped and I was talking to them for about 50 minutes, and they sort of walked off. You could see them sort of sigh of relief to get away from me because they didn't really want to know, did they? But the thing is, you know, we love watching soaps, and obviously you're going to be therapists, and you want to hear about people's vulnerabilities. You want to see that shadow, don't you? So why are we want to see other people's, but why are we so afraid of looking at our own and letting other people see ours?
I think for me, I'm trying now to just make sure I kind of maintain a balance. Like, I might always be a bit of a people pleaser, but as long as I recognize it and I know that it's not taking too much control over my life, whereas before I've been in situations where I'm dead on my feet, that would probably be good enough for me, I think.
I did an exercise on this it was a rice tray. It wasn't a sand tray, it was a rice tray. Because sand, if it gets on the floor, you could hoover it up for the next 12 months. But I put it in a sand tray, and I was positioning myself in a scenario of bringing myself forward to help another, and what was it that was triggering in me, and why I was pulling back, because I could feel this kind of rising in what was happening in me, but I was actually withdrawing, and I wasn't really that helpful because I knew that I had to contain it and not project myself to them, but trying to encourage them to think for themselves. So that's another part of your shadow that's kind of leaking out, that I reckon that when we have clients and we're working with people with quite complex difficulties and even not so complex difficulties, that we've got to be really, really aware of what's being triggered in that shadow and how we manage it in that moment.
It's difficult, isn't it? Because you've got to observe yourself as well as the person you're working with. But do you think that, you know, in society today, it's actually harder for people because there are so many expectations on people? We're supposed to be, you know, wonderful at everything and hold down jobs and have good houses and, you know, have flash cars and go to the gym and do 100 things as well. And do you think that there's sort of more expectations for people to be perfect, and therefore they're even less likely to show their shadow side?
Yeah, it's the truth is on the apps that are most prevalent at the moment, is that if you're looking at a picture or a video of someone, you know, all you are doing is measuring your insides versus their outsides, because you haven't got a clue what's going on behind it. So it just emphasizes all of the triggers and the problems that are out there at the moment. And that pressure of being perfect, or that pressure of, you know, having a fulfilled life, you know, is really intense, and it's a rabbit hole that you can go down and really struggle with. So I get what you said there, Kay, and I think that there's too much of it. There's too much of, you know, because it just, you know, when you look at a perfect picture of what you perceive as being, you know, a perfect man with everything that you'd aspire to, you know, you haven't got a clue what's gone on behind there, or the work that they've done, or the trials and tribulations, or the self-recrimination they've got. You just look at the outsides of it, and it brings the worst out, or it knocks the shadow of what you're trying to, or, you know, it brings your shadow self to the front. You know, all my fears of failure, or my fears of less than, all come out. And it's just, yeah, that's definitely a rabbit hole that I try and stay away from.
Yeah, I think I definitely try to stay. I'm a social media user, but I try to avoid it as much as possible, because that's exactly it, isn't it? It's all it's about, like you say, about only ever seeing how perfect everything is through their screens, but not really understanding or even knowing the person. Like the amount of followers I have that are like Instagram officials, or just these people that are literally, their job is to make themselves look fabulous. That's all you see. So I do as well try to stay away from
because
that.
it really pricks at yourself, doesn't it? It really,
yeah.
You know, that's it. We were talking about it earlier, talking about mirroring, and talking about, you know, what's going on when you're in with a client, and they're not there, you know, chances are they're not putting their true self out on a picture on Instagram or Facebook or whatever it is. That's not the true representation of that moment, you know, because that's what that platform is for.
Yeah.
But so that, you know, that will get very much at everything that you're trying to hide.
I think that's also very interesting, John, because when you were talking, I was thinking, what came into my head was when you have perhaps young women or even males, I haven't experienced that, but, you know, where they can't go out the door, not unless they've got their false eyelashes on, not unless they're caked with sort of makeup, and, you know, they just can't actually go out as themselves with nothing on their face, or not dressed up, because they don't feel confident enough that they're beautiful enough in who they are, or something has happened.
There's the mask you're talking about. There's the mask.
Yeah, and it seems quite normal, you know, when I watch programs with young people in it, it's normal for them to have fake everything, you know, new teeth, fake boobs, whatever, eyelashes, the whole works. And I was watching something the other night, and there was a girl on there, she was in her 30s, but she was like, she goes to bed in her full makeup, just in case something happens in the night and she needs an ambulance and has to go to hospital. It's like, you know, one in a million chance that every night she has to keep her makeup on, and it's really sad. But there are people getting away from that mindset. I think I like watching things about people who take that alternative lifestyle and go and live in the wilderness, or go and live in a camper van and live a very simple life and get away from all society's pressures, because then they can be who they really are. They can wear what they want, you know, do what they want, and they might not be as well off as they were, but they haven't got all those pressures that society puts on us.
It's very interesting, Kay, because when you think about where does that start, and if you look in buggies or prams, or young children going along with their parents, and they've got their designer tops on, they got their designer clothes, and they can't go out in anything, not unless it's got a name or a label on it. And then when they go to school, everybody wins. There's not a loser in the sack race or the egg and spoon race. Even if they do that now, you know, they've got to have, like, everyone gets a prize. You have a winner, but everyone gets a prize. Birthdays, siblings, a sibling will get a birthday present even if it's not their birthday. So I know that's about perhaps many other things, but does that mean that you can't be a winner or a loser? Life is not perfect. You know, you can lose and it's okay. You can win and it's okay. It doesn't make you any less of a person or any of those things. And I know it can go to extremes, but where is it starting? You know, where are we introducing it? Where are we bringing it for us not to be able to be comfortable with what we have, rather than, doesn't mean you don't have to have aspirations, but there's a balance and we're losing the balance. You know, you've got to have this great big house when you first leave home. I mean, who can afford a great big house when they first leave home, you know? But if they don't have it, they feel a failure, or all those kind of things. Where is it going? There's got to be a cap somewhere.
No.
Yeah.
It's in, I was talking to someone yesterday about TA, and I'm very much looking forward to delving into that, because that child-parent relationship and what you influence and how you influence and what they think is right and their values, where they come from, can be, you know, is so fantastically important and so unconscious as well, that it's really, you know, that really, that kind of excites me, that relationship right there.
Of course, I mean, yes, your parenting, your early experiences are really important, but also when you go to school, that's important. And I remember my son's teachers saying to him, question everything, don't just accept things, question everything. But then when the kids did question things, they just got told off. So they learned to repress, you know, what they really wanted to say and how they really felt, because that was what they had to do at school. So I think there's a lot that comes into it, isn't there? And I'm sure we could talk about this for much longer, and it's a really interesting subject, but we have actually got to stop the conversation because we're running out of time now. But you know, it's been lovely talking to you guys about it, and we hope you've enjoyed it out there. If you have, please give us a like and subscribe to our channel. But for now, it's goodbye from us. Hope to see you again soon.
Bye.
See you later.
Thank you, Kay. Bye.
Thank you, Kay.